Well, hello everyone. It's my pleasure to be chatting today with Scott MacInnes. Scott MacInnes is a trombonist and instructor and faculty member at the University of Victoria in Victoria, BC, Canada. He is also the artistic director of the BC Brass Collective and the Meridian Wind Orchestras. And today we're talking all about being a musician in the age of COVID. Scott, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here, Frank. Thanks.
So Scott and I have been connected for some time on social media within our larger music community. And Scott was one of the many musicians across the world that decided to participate in a Music for Self-Isolation project. I'm assuming in BC, you went into lockdown in March, like most of Canada, I guess, right?
Yeah, we went, I think it was, middle of March, basically, yeah. And that was definitely a shock. We obviously had many performances lined up for right around that period of time, and to have everything just kind of come to a grinding halt, I know everyone across the world was just kind of in shock about that. And, being an instrumentalist that plays an instrument that's definitely more of a community instrument. It's not a solo virtuosic instrument in a normal sense. To have everything kind of just shut down, you feel lost because you don't have other people that you're playing with, which is something that you just naturally do all the time. And I went through a bunch of health stuff over from 2019, the beginning of July. I had a surgery and I spent 21 days in the hospital, and I had a second surgery, and then wasn't feeling so great until February of this year. I had another third surgery, and then finally was about to be back into the world and performing and feeling good about things in general, and got my one performance in, and then everything shut down. So it felt very bizarre to have all of this happen. So I was super thankful to have this project kind of come along, because it gave me some sense of purpose and some sense of drive. And I really wanted, I wanted to make some music, and it was cool to have something new that I could be a part of.
Well, yeah, that's great to hear. Life is all about timing often. You must have had gosh, you've been through a lot in the past year, definitely with the what you have to go through in getting better. You must have been happy though you got out of the hospital when all this stuff happened. I mean, that must have been crazy.
I pulled very few of the good straws over the last year and a half. I pulled a lot of short straws. I was told I was going to be in the hospital the first time for 5 days, and 10 days later I went in for another surgery. Lost 30 pounds in 10 days. It was just it was a bad situation that got worse. And to have the third surgery, which was basically the end of this chapter, hopefully, happen and be able to get out of the hospital before all of this happened, was definitely the best possible situation that could have happened. So I was super thankful for the timing of it. And really, in some respects, this whole pandemic may have helped me heal faster, because I had many performances lined up for the month after I got out of the hospital, because I was itching to perform. I really wanted to get back in the saddle, and then everything got shut down. So I really only got one show in after, which was a fairly easy faculty concert where I only had to play a couple things. And then I had to take it easy, which was what the doctors wanted me to do anyway. So, it was a bit of a forced self-healing.
Can you go back in time and try to recollect, like, what were you thinking when all of this happened? Were you, like you said, you were sort of, maybe it was a blessing in disguise, right? But were you thinking that at that time?
No. I mean, at the time I was super frustrated. A bunch of my groups that I run had to go without me, or I had to put them on hold for a little while. And I'd had some projects that I'd had to push back. So I had a bunch of things in the pipeline that I was just super excited about getting back into. And like I said at the very beginning of this, playing with people, and this is something I've learned even more. I always knew this about myself, but playing with people is really what drives me. It's really what makes me happy and what makes me feel like I can actually play my instrument. There are sometimes when I play by myself for too long, I think I thought I knew how to do this thing, but I don't. Like I feel completely lost without having that conversation with another musician musically. So, I've basically had that over the last year, and I was really excited to get out of that. And then all of a sudden this happens. And so I was super bummed at the beginning of it. I was really down. I was super frustrated. But like I said, I was also kind of grasping at the universe to throw me something to do. I have a brass quintet that has done a lot of stuff in the past, but we lost a couple members, and so that was kind of not happening. And then I play with E-Tromboni, which is a trombone quintet that's based all across Canada. So I thought this is a perfect opportunity maybe to get some stuff happening with that, because we can't get together all the time anyway, but that wasn't happening great. And so it was fantastic to have a project that I could do by myself but still make music and feel like I was part of something, and that I was contributing in some small way to development of art in this weird time.
There was definitely that feeling in those initial weeks, like in late March and in much of April. It just feel like online there was this huge feeling of let's do something, as a music community. That was really exciting because I think it's sort of helped maybe quell the shock of everything at that very moment. So there was a ton of like yourself, and for our particular project, so many great video performances being posted online. People were organizing and still organizing a lot of virtual concerts and that kind of thing. And, it was great to watch a lot of those types of things. And what's your feeling about technology now because of the pandemic, especially related to what we do as musicians? What do you think the good and the bad of technology is, the pros and the cons of technology that is exposed to how we make music and what we do?
That's a tough one. I mean, the positive was, if this happened even 40 years ago, there's so little of this interconnectivity that could have happened. There's no way that the two of us would have connected. There's no way that I would have had the ability to do what I did and what you did to get it to me. And the logistics would have been impossible even 40 years ago. So, I mean, that's a huge positive. The fact that we've never met face to face before, and yet, we're able to have this collaboration was, that's an amazing part of the technology for sure. I have spoken with many of my colleagues, and I will have to say I tend to agree, although there are some exceptions, obviously, but I'm getting really sick and tired of the multi-tracked little shots of people playing and recording over themselves. But I understand it. I completely understand why we're doing it. And I actually sat down and I started recording. I've written a bunch of stuff for trombone specifically, or for brass quintet or whatever, but I've written a trombone trio and a quartet and quintets, and I thought, I'll just multi-track. I hated the process. I don't have a space that's very good for recording. There's just all these things that I wasn't playing with anybody else. And to me, that's not the point. I mean, yes, I'm making music, but it's kind of like having a conversation with yourself by recording the first part of the conversation, then trying to interact with it. It doesn't work. And it doesn't work for me anyway. I'm super impressed with people like one of my all-time fave trombone players is Alain Trudel, who's primarily a conductor now. But in this time, he's found this new drive to pick up his horn again. And I love watching his videos of these trombone quartets and things like that he's re-recorded. But that's just because he's an incredible musician. And so I admire that. But I don't find the joy in doing it myself. And like I said, I really miss playing with people. So I think that's one of the ugly things about it, is that it seems like we're chugging along and we're making music, but we're not really making a lot of music, in my opinion. We're just kind of just reinventing the wheel over and over. Your project is one of the few ones I've got the chance to take a part in, where there's actually, a creative, a new creation being happening. So that was one of the things that I loved about this. And then another ugly part of it, I think, is that because we're all sitting at home and we've got all this time on our hands, it's that age old just giving it away for free thing that kind of drives me a little bit nuts too. I love that what we do as musicians, I think, has really been outlined or brought to the forefront that we're kind of a spiritual help, and in a time like this we need that big time, so I think a lot of people used these projects, these multi-tracks or whatever, as their own therapy, but I think a lot of people listening to them use them as their therapy as well. But that now they're just out there, and you can just continually watch them as many times as you want, and there's something to be said about a live performance, both for the performers being able to react with each other, and also for the audience, just in terms of how you perceive that, how you react to it. And there's no technology yet that can get that. It just doesn't work.
I completely agree with everything you said there, for sure. It's for me, it's just been, and I've talked to a lot of people about this. And I've heard a lot of people getting interviewed, not necessarily musicians, but like just people who love music. And I found in the last month or two, after that initial like 4 to 8 weeks where there was so many people doing live stream concerts and posting videos and things like that, especially live stream concerts, I found that people were starting to say that there was too much. It was actually doing that. But interestingly, I never hear people talking about there's too much live music. So that it goes with what the point you make, right? Which is that it's having a shared experience in a live setting with being physically in the same room as other people is so innate to who we are as human beings, right? We can't beat that.
Yeah, no, totally agree. It's a completely different experience, and I think we've always all felt that, in terms of it's great to listen to a recording, but you can't beat going and seeing the real thing live.
What's fascinating is, even though for a lot of these live stream concerts, people have been live, like they're literally live, it's still not the same. And I think it's fascinating that we as musicians think, oh, we're the stars of the show and that type of thing, but it's actually not. It's really, we're everybody in a room to experience or either to share or consume a musical experience are all partners. We're all feeding off each other. We can't really have it. And I mean, I've had once in a while the experiences, I'm sure you have over the years, where there's hardly any crowd, and that's never as the adrenaline and the energy in the room is never as good as maybe when there's more people in the crowd, right? What has the pandemic taught us about the future of live music? What do you think about that?
It's hard to have a crystal ball, for sure, but like you said, I think that there's this renewed sense of a value to live music. The thing that really kind of proved that to me, that people are starving for a real musical experience, was I've been giving about month and a half into, or something like that, into the pandemic, I started giving lessons in parking lots of churches, or in basketball courts, or things like that, because I was just done with the Zoom thing. We could be at a distance, we could make a sound, I could actually demonstrate what I sound like, they could demonstrate what they, like there was all these things that I just missed about interacting with people. So just at the end of my street where I live here, there's this little park with this teeny little basketball court, and I was giving this grade 8 student a lesson for an hour. He's been playing the trombone for a year. And for playing for a year, he's a very good student, but he's a very green student. He's by no means a professional musician or somebody that you're going to go pay to listen to. Well, probably for up to 48 hours after that, when I'd walk my dog, people would stop me and say, "Thank you so much for the music the other day." And like, that's huge. Like that is, if we can lock onto that, if we can realize that when we missed it, when we didn't have it, we missed it that much. If we can take that and realize, wow, I was totally okay with not going to the movie theater and watching the movie. I could watch it on my TV and I've got a big sound and blah, blah. But it's not the same thing when I watch a live musician versus when I watch a recorded musician. And I've spoken to so many people, and it's been proven to me now that this little snippet of an example is that there's a lady in town here who was a regular in the Victoria Symphony subscription series, and she was missing music so much that I'm not sure if it's every Friday or every other Friday, she is herself paying a small amount to musicians to stand on her front stoop and put on a concert for an hour. And then she puts out a bucket. And I want to say there's on average probably between 60 and 80 people that come and bring their lawn chairs and sit all over the thing. And as a musician that played it, I almost made scale for a show with people. That's how much people want this to happen. That happened, and then people go, "Hey, that's a great idea," and now they're just kind of happening all over town. And to answer your question in a very roundabout way, I'm hoping that there's going to be a positive, renewed interest in live music. So it's figuring out how we can make that safe for performers and for audience members, so that we can renew those activities and those experiences. I'm a little frustrated with the way things are right now because nothing's happening inside. We're not allowed to have rehearsals, blah, blah, blah. But down the end of the street here, there's 40 kids all playing basketball together at a city-run summer camp. And to me, that makes, like, kids are safe to play together, but we can't trust adults to sit 3 seats apart in a theater. Like, I don't quite understand the rationale here. And I keep getting new information sent to me because I've voiced my opinions on how I think it's safer to play an instrument and potentially sing and than people think. As long as we do it in a proper way, then why can't we be doing more of these performances in different venues? So I'm hoping that more of the research will come out, and that once that little piece is solved, once we figure out, oh, well, you know what, as long as we're 2 meters apart at all times, no matter what, then it's not a big deal. Then maybe we can get back to doing this sooner than later, because even playing with people, like you said before, playing with people for a small audience or no audience, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing for the listener after the fact either. You can just feel the difference in the energy. So, to have a faculty concert that we're planning for February, have nobody in the audience, and then record it, it's gonna be great to play with my colleagues. I'm gonna love it, but I would much rather have a 1/3 full house than a completely empty house. And I know that the people who are avid music, I'm trying to think of a better word than digesters. Consumers. Yeah. Consumers, that's the word I'm looking for. I still have anesthesia brain every so often. Avid consumers of music are dying to get into those situations to hear live music again. And so I hope that we can figure that out and that we can move forward. But I'm nervous about how that's all going to kind of come together, because for some reason, despite the fact the arts has been obviously been one of the crutches that's held up society through this whole time, it's been also put into this box where it's not super important or mandatory in terms of the functioning of society, and it's pretty unsafe to have wind instruments and things like that and people in small spaces. So we're just going to put it in that's in the unsafe box. We're not allowed to go there. And I hope that changes soon.
Yeah, a lot of things you mentioned there that I would be interested in following up on. Maybe let me quickly. I don't want you to have to get too political here or anything like that. But any idea why you? And I don't want to put words into your mouth that saying that maybe you think musicians are being discriminated against in this whole process.
I am a huge baseball fan. I love hockey, but there is no way that it's safer to play those sports than it is to play my instrument. No way. But I also know that the money that they make and the money that they bring in is nowhere close to what I do. So it's really, I mean, that's the only difference that I can see, and I don't understand why that needs to be a reason for us not to be doing what we do. But that's I guess the answer that I've come to is we want we as a society, or the powers that be, want to make sure that the things that make the most money happen as quickly as possible, and the things that don't, well, if there's any chance that they could be an issue or unsafe, then we're not going to let them happen. And the arts has never been a a huge moneymaker for, you know, pretty much anybody.
Capitalism, yeah.
Yeah. Which is, the thing that I found really interesting is I kind of right now feel like a musician of court back, in the days, because I feel like I'm being propped up right now financially by people who are able to work or are retired or whatever, that know that I love to do what I do and have some time on my hands. So I personally am having the busiest summer I've ever had in terms of work, being commissioned for compositions and being asked to do performances. And like it's usually summers are very quiet because symphony orchestras don't work. This year, I've got more than I've had to turn down a couple things, which has never happened before. And so I think there are people in society that realize. I know there are people in society that realize that, first of all, it's important, and second of all, that what we do isn't for money. It's not to try. When I decided I was going to be a trombone player, grade 9, I said, almost, I don't know, it might have been out loud, but I said it to myself. I said, you know what? I'm going to be a trombone player, and I don't care that I'm going to be poor. And really, like, I absolutely love playing. I love making music with others, and money to me made no sense whatsoever in comparison to doing something that I could do that I loved. And I'm fortunate to have a wife that works a full-time job, and the old adage of what do you call a single trombone player? Homeless, is very very much true. But it's fantastic that I get to do what I do, and I'm so excited that I have so many people that in my community that are supporting people like me. And I know it's not just me, that they value what we do enough that even though we're not out in the public and we're not in people's faces and we're not doing what we normally do all the time, they want to make sure that we can do that, and that we will continue to do that. So I hope that those people and those situations become more well known, and that the people who are in charge of these decisions realize that just because we are not raking in millions of dollars, we do bring an important service to our communities and to the well-being of everyone around us, I think.
There's a significant amount of people that say they're not going to go back to concerts the way they used to be in clubs and concert halls and theaters, etc. How do you think, not really talking much about the artistic side, but more the practical side of running a performing arts organization, how is this whole experience going to evolve? How performance arts organizations are going to have to do what they do, and can they even survive?
I have obviously asked myself multiple times. I've asked others multiple times. Um, it, it's one of those questions I almost didn't want to ask myself because I don't want to think about it. There's a big part of me that just kind of wants to temporarily bury my head in the sand and hope that we don't need to reinvent the wheel and we don't need to figure out how to make things work in a whole new system. The halls aren't being or weren't being 100% filled very frequently, if ever. So to me, the answer could be that instead of blocking off chairs, things are removed, and we've got space. There's you're going to feel a little less sardiny. You're not just sitting at a table or sitting between people squished together, but you have your own space. You feel comfortable. Whatever. There might be a server. Who knows? But there might. Because when Roy Thompson Hall, for instance, got rid of all of those seats and actually put aisles, I don't think that they lost ticket revenue by removing seats. I think they did the math and went, well, you know what? I think more people are going to want to come if they don't have to go, excuse me, pardon me, pardon me, excuse me, the whole way across. So there's a possibility that we can adapt and take the fact that say there's 1,500 seats right now. Now there's going to be 800 seats in this hall. It's going to be spacious. It's going to be comfortable. They're not going to, it's going to be an experience, and the ticket prices are going to go up minimally because you get a bit better experience.
The live music venue is going to become almost like a spiritual place, like a sanctuary.
Yeah, and I mean, in some ways I take it that way. We have a beautiful hall at the University of Victoria for recitals and things like that. And every time I go in there, I play like 2 notes, and it feels like a baptism. I just feel like I'm good again. I can do this. It's going to be fine.
So just on a sort of a bit of a personal note for you, what do you think is the big takeaway that you've learned about yourself and that's making you a stronger person?
But I feel like I never got to the point where I thought where I was kind of like driving myself nuts by trying to get better constantly, but instead was just okay to be by myself, okay to take a day off, okay to just sit back and say, okay, nothing's happening right now. It's going to be okay. Stuff's going to happen later. You've got time. I'm going to go fishing instead.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, Scott. I'm really happy you got through that. And it's really great that you learned a lot about yourself too, about that, hey, I can be patient, or I can, and I think that's a great thing. I think a lot of people, especially musicians, we're resilient by nature because of the unstable nature of what we do, right? But this has gone a whole other level as far as having like what's going to happen in the future. Who the heck knows, right? Really great to hear your perspectives today. So thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure. So thankful to be part of this whole bigger project. It was part of my my healing for this time. So I really appreciate it.